Welcome back to the Olympus Report, demigods, monsters, and gods alike. Everyone makes mistakes, even gods like Rick Riordan. Here's everything you need to know about the mistakes in the Riordanverse Part 4. If you haven't watched parts 1 through 3, go check those out first and then come back, as I've already covered a lot of mistakes within the Riordanverse. I think Rick Riordan's writing is as close to perfect as you can get, and I'm not making these videos to throw shade, merely as an observation so readers can be aware and we can discuss them. Alright, let's move on to the mistakes. The first mistake was actually pointed out by Pee-wee's Is Cool 311. In the first book, it's mentioned that all Athena kids have blonde, wavy hair and gray eyes, similar to Annabeth, meaning a signature characteristic of Athena children is blonde hair and gray eyes in the book. Despite this, in the Magnus Chase series, Magnus talks about the Chase family's characteristics of blonde, wavy hair and gray eyes, like his own. So is blonde hair and gray eyes a characteristic of Athena children or a characteristic of the Chase family? I think Rick Riordan just forgot. Kind of like how sometimes he forgets the timeline. As we've covered before, Rick isn't the best at keeping track of the timeline. And plot holes in timelines I found are most prevalent when you go back in time and write prequels. And that's what Wrath of the Triple Goddess is, a prequel, coming after the Heroes of Olympus but before the Trials of Apollo. In the book, Percy brings up Leo Valdez. But the way Leo is used here just doesn't make sense.
I'd barely been able to master numbers and colors in Spanish, even with my friend Leo Valdez as a tutor. The
book takes place before the Hidden Oracle, where it states Leo has been missing since the end of the Blood of Olympus. So when did Leo have time to tutor Percy in Spanish? When they were fighting for their lives on the Argo 2? Something tells me that homework was the last thing on Percy's mind, especially after surviving Tartarus. But let's just say Percy wanted to study on the Argo 2. In the Blood of Olympus, we see that Percy and Leo don't really get along. Percy never really talked to Leo after Leo bombed New Rome, even though Percy knew it was an accident. And Leo was resentful of Percy after returning from Ogygia, angry at Percy for abandoning Calypso. They do make up and become friends, but by the time they do, they're thrown into the final battle. So definitely no time to study. And that's not the only mistake within the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. The book also brings back a character introduced in The Lost Hero, Clovis. In The Lost Hero, Clovis is introduced as being a son of Hypnos. In The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, Percy says he's a son of Morpheus, god of dreams. And if you've watched part 2, you know this isn't the first time that Rick has confused these gods. In fact, it's not even the only time he's been inconsistent with gods in general. In The Lightning Thief, Luke mentions that among other things, Hermes is the god of medicine, which is untrue, as we know. Especially in the Riordanverse, Apollo is the god of medicine. But besides just gods, Rick has also confused the cabins. Here's a quote from The Lightning Thief.
The sand exploded at his feet and out charged a wild boar, even larger and uglier than the one whose head hung above the door of Cabin 7 at Camp Half-Blood.
Cabin 7 is the Apollo cabin and definitely doesn't have a boar. That would be Cabin 5. But I'm going to let this one slide because we could blame it on Percy. At this point, Percy hadn't spent a lot of time at camp, so maybe he just forgot. Kinda like Percy, Rick also forgets details. In the short story, The Sword of Hades, Percy thinks because Thalia is now immortal and has not aged since about a year ago, that would mean he is now older than her. However, Thalia was 1 day younger than 16 when she became immortal in the Titan's Curse. And since The Sword of Hades takes place on Christmas Day of the same year as the Battle of the Labyrinth, Percy would only be about 15 and a half, and still younger than Thalia. It is possible that Rick just got confused because he did write this short story after The Last Olympian when Percy turned 16. You see what happens when you write prequels? There's just too much to keep track of. But I don't think this is the only time Rick forgot how old Thalia was supposed to be. In The Lost Hero, while Jason is looking at the photo of Annabeth, Luke, and Thalia in Cabin 1, it is said that in the photo Thalia was maybe 15. However, Thalia couldn't have been any older than 12 or 13 at the time the photo was taken, since this was before she turned into a tree. Maybe Rick just also has a hard time with ages, as we've seen in previous videos. And here's one more age-related mistake. In The Last Olympian, it is revealed that Zeus had tried to kill Bianca and Nico. So Hades placed them in the Lotus Hotel and Casino. When they were placed inside, they were very small children. So it is unknown how they grew to the ages they are in the Titan's Curse. Because from the looks of it, they were not out more than 2 years before coming to camp. And according to Bianca, when they were in the hotel, only a couple of months passed. Like I said before, these mistakes are harmless and don't affect the story, so I'm okay with them. But would we really be fans if we didn't look at the smallest details? Have you guys caught any other mistakes in the Riordanverse? Let me know down below. But until next time, I'm signing off, and please stay safe.